My name, it's pronounced Frankenstein.
Young Frankenstein wasn't just a parody of classic horror. It was a mad scientist's experiment that reanimated the very soul of old Hollywood. Behind its black and white elegance was chaos. Gene Wilder fought studio executives. Mel Brooks ignored every rule. Sets nearly caught fire, tempers flared, and some scenes were so funny that even the actors broke down mid-take. So let's uncover 20 weird facts about Young Frankenstein that reveal how this monster of a comedy was stitched together from madness. Gene Wilder's idea nearly got him thrown out. Young Frankenstein began not in a studio office, but in Gene Wilder's notebook. He scribbled a single line: "What if Frankenstein had a grandson who was embarrassed by it?" Mel Brooks laughed at first, then hesitated. He didn't want to be typecast as the parody guy after Blazing Saddles. When Wilder pitched it again on set, Brooks exploded and threw him out of the room. But a week later, Brooks called and said, "Let's make the movie." That fiery confrontation became the spark that birthed a legend. What audiences didn't know was that this act of defiance created one of the greatest comedy partnerships in history. The studio wanted it in color. 20th Century Fox didn't understand why anyone would make a black and white movie in 1974. Executives wanted color. They thought modern audiences would reject monochrome. Mel Brooks refused. He argued that Frankenstein's world was born in shadow and lightning, not sunlight. He told the studio they could fire him, but he wouldn't shoot a single frame in color. That bold stand almost killed the project before filming began. Eventually, Brooks won, and the decision gave the movie its eerie authenticity. Without it, Young Frankenstein would have looked like a spoof instead of the loving resurrection of Gothic cinema that it became. Real Frankenstein lab equipment was used. The glowing coils and sparking Tesla devices weren't replicas. They were the actual props from Universal's 1931 Frankenstein film. Special effects designer Ken Strickfaden had kept the original machines hidden in his garage for decades. When Brooks found out, he tracked Strickfaden down and convinced him to rent them for the shoot. When the switches flipped and sparks flew again, it wasn't movie magic. It was the same lightning that once brought Boris Karloff's monster to life. Even Wilder reportedly stood still after the first take, whispering, "It's alive for real." That authenticity charged the entire production with ghostly nostalgia. Marty Feldman's eye condition became a script change. Marty Feldman, who played Igor, had a natural eye condition called Graves' disease, which caused his eyes to bulge. Instead of hiding it, Brooks turned it into comedy gold. The script originally mentioned Igor's hump once, but Feldman began moving it to the other side between takes. When Wilder asked, "Didn't your hump used to be on the other side?" Feldman ad-libbed, "What hump?" The crew lost control, laughing. Brooks kept it in. Feldman's improvisation transformed what could have been a gimmick into one of the most memorable running jokes in the film. Cloris Leachman's makeup took hours every day. Cloris Leachman, who played Frau Blucher, endured one of the toughest makeup routines on set. Each morning she spent over 3 hours in the chair while makeup artists aged her 20 years using prosthetics and wigs. Leachman hated the smell of the spirit gum glue and called the process torture. Yet she stayed perfectly in character, delivering lines with icy menace. Even horses reportedly reacted in fear whenever she walked by on set. Her chilling performance turned a minor supporting role into one of the most unforgettable characters in comedy history. Peter Boyle could barely breathe in the monster suit. The hulking creature that Peter Boyle portrayed was more than a costume, it was a prison. The makeup department layered thick rubber and glue over his skin each morning until he could hardly move. Under the blazing lights, the suit trapped heat so intensely that Boyle fainted during one take. He tore off part of the mask, gasping for air, as the crew rushed in with fans and water. Instead of complaining, he returned to set an hour later and finished the scene in full character. His exhaustion gave the monster a strange sadness that made audiences feel sympathy instead of fear. That pain became performance, and it gave the movie its heart. Gene Wilder kept laughing during serious scenes. Gene Wilder had one weakness: he could not stay serious when Marty Feldman was on screen. During scenes that required solemn intensity, Wilder often broke down, laughing, ruining multiple takes. Mel Brooks grew furious and banned him from watching Feldman's face directly. To fix the problem, Brooks filmed Wilder's close-ups separately. Ironically, those very takes, where Wilder was holding back laughter, made the character's nervous tension more believable. What audiences saw as calm frustration was often Wilder's struggle not to burst into laughter. The comedy lived in that chaos, and the camera captured every ounce of it. The Puttin' on the Ritz scene was nearly deleted. Mel Brooks thought the musical number was too absurd. He wanted to cut it from the script completely. Gene Wilder fought him to keep it, insisting that the ridiculous contrast between monster and melody was the perfect punchline. During the first test screening, the audience went silent, then erupted with laughter and applause. Brooks later admitted that Wilder had been right all along, that one risky scene turned the monster into a misunderstood showman and gave the film its defining moment. Without it, young Frankenstein might never have crossed from parody to perfection. Mel Brooks refused to act in his own film. Fans expected Mel Brooks to make a cameo, but he refused. He said his presence would pull audiences out of the story. Instead, he hid his voice in the background as the howling wolf and the screaming cat. Those secret sounds were Brooks having fun behind the microphone while keeping the illusion intact. It was a rare act of restraint for a director known for wild cameos. His decision allowed the story to stay focused on Gene Wilder's performance and gave the film a mysterious purity that still feels timeless today. The castle was a real location, not a set. Most of the movie's eerie grandeur came from an actual castle in Bavaria, not a soundstage. The production team traveled to Germany to shoot the exterior shots, giving the film an authentic Gothic atmosphere. Inside the castle's cold halls, the actors said they could hear their footsteps echo for miles. The damp stone walls and candlelight created real tension that no studio could replicate. Even Mel Brooks admitted that being there gave him chills. That authenticity turned every scene into a living tribute to the classic Universal horrors that inspired the film. The crew could not stop laughing on set. Filming young Frankenstein was chaos. The cast and crew were constantly breaking down in laughter, ruining take after take. Mel Brooks finally banned laughter during shooting and threatened to fire anyone who giggled on set. The rule lasted less than one day. Even the camera operators lost control during the dinner scene when Wilder screamed in frustration at the monster. That relentless laughter gave the production a strange energy where comedy flowed naturally rather than being forced. It was proof that everyone knew they were making something special. Go ahead and like and subscribe, because this is where the madness behind the masterpiece begins to show its wildest side. Terry Garr trained for weeks to perfect her accent. Terry Garr's character Inga sounded effortlessly funny, but the accent was a carefully crafted illusion. Garr spent weeks working with a dialect coach to blend German and Swedish tones into one unique voice. She even rehearsed in public speaking only as Inga until the day shooting began. Mel Brooks was stunned by her discipline and allowed her to improvise entire lines on set. Her performance gave the movie warmth and innocence, balancing the darkness of the story. What audiences heard as lighthearted humor was the result of method, precision, and artistic obsession hidden under that blonde wig. Mel Brooks banned all modern technology on set. To preserve the old Hollywood feel, Brooks imposed strict rules. No digital watches, no modern props, no visible microphones. Crew members had to hide anything invented after the 1930s. Even walkie-talkies were forbidden. He wanted every frame to look as if it could have been shot in 1931. That obsession with authenticity created frustration among the crew, but it paid off. The film looked like a time capsule resurrected from another era. Audiences felt they were watching lost footage from Universal's golden age of horror rather than a modern spoof. Kenneth Mars injured himself for real during filming. Kenneth Mars, who played Inspector Kemp, threw himself into every scene so literally that he dislocated his arm while performing the character's exaggerated salute. Instead of stopping production, he kept going, using the injury as part of his performance. His uneven movements became a running gag that made his scenes even funnier. The crew only realized later that his pain was genuine. That moment of real suffering turned into one of the film's most memorable comic rhythms, proving that sometimes reality itself is funnier than fiction. The lightning effects were done practically. There was no computer trickery. Every bolt of lightning that illuminated the laboratory was a carefully timed practical effect using mirrors and high-voltage flashes. Technicians risked shocks while resetting the equipment between takes. During one storm sequence, the lights blew out an entire section of the studio. The crew applauded, thinking it was part of the scene. That raw physical danger added a strange authenticity to the resurrection moments. What audiences saw on screen wasn't digital illusion, but real electricity crackling through the air, making movie magic feel alive again. Gene Wilder rewrote the ending at the last minute. The script originally ended with the monster walking into the night, never to be seen again. Gene Wilder felt it was too bleak. On the final shooting week, he locked himself in his trailer and rewrote the entire ending, adding the brain transfer sequence that gave the monster human intellect. Mel Brooks hesitated but agreed to film it. That one rewrite turned the ending from tragic to poetic. It completed the story's emotional circle, showing that even monsters can find grace. Without Wilder's late-night rewrite, Young Frankenstein might have ended in darkness instead of laughter. The set smelled like rotting food. The dining scenes looked elegant, but the food used for decoration was real and left under hot lights for days. By the time cameras rolled, the smell was unbearable. Cloris Leachman nearly vomited while delivering her lines. Mel Brooks refused to replace the plates because he said the decay made the table look more authentic. Crew members wore masks between takes while the cast tried not to breathe too deeply. That strange dedication to realism added discomfort that bled into the performances, giving those scenes their eerie energy. Mel Brooks allowed only one take for the monster's rage scene. The moment where the monster attacks Frankenstein in the lab was filmed once. Brooks told the actors to go all in because he wanted real fear. Peter Boyle ripped through his restraints with such power that parts of the set broke. Gene Wilder's scream of terror was genuine. Afterward, Brooks refused to shoot another take. He said the danger felt real and that nothing staged could top it. The raw panic captured in that single shot made it one of the most unforgettable moments in comedy horror history. The film's editing took twice as long as expected. The post-production process was a nightmare. Brooks and editor John Howard spent months piecing together scenes that constantly broke continuity due to ad-libs and laughter. Hundreds of feet of film were unusable because actors could not stay in character. Brooks said editing Young Frankenstein felt like assembling a puzzle with pieces that kept changing shape. But out of that chaos came rhythm. The final cut had a precision that made each laugh land perfectly. It proved that genius sometimes looks like madness when viewed through the lens of raw footage. The movie's success shocked the entire industry. When the film opened, critics expected a modest comedy. Instead, it exploded. Audiences packed theaters and laughed until they cried. The movie earned over $80 million worldwide and became one of the highest-grossing comedies of its decade. More importantly, it revived interest in classic monster cinema, inspiring countless parodies and homages. Mel Brooks went from cult comedian to mainstream legend. What began as a black-and-white gamble became a cultural resurrection, proving that sincerity can thrive even inside satire. The horses reacted for real to Frau Blücher. Every time Frau Blücher's name was spoken, horses neighed in terror. Most assumed it was a sound effect added later. It wasn't. During filming, the horses on set actually panicked whenever Cloris Leachman appeared in costume. Trainers could not explain it. Brooks decided to keep their genuine reactions in the film, turning accident into comedy legend. That moment of animal instinct became one of cinema's funniest coincidences. Young Frankenstein wasn't just a spoof. It was lightning caught in a bottle. Every laugh, every scream, and every spark of madness came from real risk and raw imagination. Mel Brooks and Gene Wilder built a masterpiece from chaos and gave new life to old monsters. The result still stands as proof that comedy and horror share the same beating heart. Stay tuned for more strange stories from behind the camera and keep that lightning ready for the next creation.